Things had become quiet once more, except for the sound of the new individual sharpening his knife, and Jace became uneasy, having to remind him of his scar across his face. The young man named Sid, the one with the knife, had decided to accompany Jace and BC before departing for the rise. Sid noticed that Jace is watching him now, with a look of hell on his face, and sheathes his knife, deciding to sharpen it another time. BC is feeding little Root, who seems to be turning into a little potato from always stuffing its face. As the flying train races through the sky, Sid and Jace begin to discuss the plans of action for when they will arrive at the mountain to meet up with the old man Zen. He might not want to leave his home, Jace says. Yes, but we most certainly could use his help if we are ever to stop you. We must convince him to join us, Sid replies. Yeah, those followers sound like bad news, Jace finishes with a bit of distraught in him. Suddenly there is a large jolt on the train's floor. Root begins to squeak with surprise as it scurries into BC's shirt. What the hell was that? Jace stammers as the train again shakes more violently. As they all look out of the windows to see what is happening, they are amazed to see that it is a very large airship. And before anyone can say another word, most of the train's floor is devoured by another assault from its cannons. Root, being startled, creates a radiant barrier of lightning around itself and BC. Jace, now not taking another second to hesitate, leaps out from the opening in the floor and swings himself up onto the roof of the moving train to anticipate the enemy's next attack. Sid makes a narrow escape behind his seat and covers his body with a highly durable cloak, helping him shield him from debris and shrapnel. As the airship approaches, it fires one last hit before passing under the train, and Jace is able to look down upon it into a massive dark hole in the top of the hull center. Knowing what awaits for him and his friends if the ship is not stopped, Jace launches himself off of the train and into the abyss of the ship. Hey, wait up! Sid and BC shout as Jace disappears into its darkness. BC and Sid both follow reluctantly, with Root's glowing light showing the way down. As they land, they discover that Jace has become entrapped in a prison made of some kind of inescapable painful light, which looks like a tube filled with electricity. Becoming surrounded by a number of threatening robots, BC and Sid make their plan of action. I'm not really that good of a fighter, Sid, BC shouts, hoping for Sid's protection. I've got your back, but I must warn you, I've never been in a battle before. I still haven't made it through half of my training back home, Sid responds as they put themselves back to back. As they begin destroying the machines, more rise in their place. BC, who has taken the offensive with Root's help, becomes tired from having to evade so often, and Sid knows without Jace there is no chance of surviving. As the machines, who are showing no signs of exhaustion, start to close in on the three of them, Sid takes one last look over at BC and turns to Jace, who is still in extremely searing pain caused by the electrical field that he is trapped in. Gripping his knife and stiffening his body, Sid lunges with a strong and swift jab at the barrier, hoping it will cause a break long enough for Jace to escape from his hellish prison. The knife plunges deep into the outer edge of the field, and immense pain takes over Sid, and he can now hear Jace's screams of agony as well. Sid twists the knife, digging it deeper into the field, and then reverses the direction of the blade, pushing it into himself as if to hold the contact on him before blacking out from the agony. By doing so, Jace is able to break free of the barrier and separates Sid from the barrier as well. With Jace first attempting to catch his breath, he then rushes to the aid of BC en route, who is still holding off the killer robots. Gasping, Jace speaks to the group. Thanks for everything, you guys, but I'll handle it from here on out. Find a way out from here, and I'll meet up with you after I finish up. Knowing that Jace is not going to have it any other way, BC obeys his wishes and gathers up the now injured Sid with the help of Root, and they find their way up the winding staircase leading out of the hole they had previously entered. When they are out of sight, Jace falls to one knee, exhausted from the surging pain caused by the electric barrier machine. As feeling begins to restore itself back into his fingers and his entire core as well, Jace acts quickly and does a 360 heel kick that sends such a force behind it that it destroys most of the robots left before BC evacuated. Finishing the spin and landing back on his feet for the final crash of the gears and circuitry of the wiped out machinery, Jace is struck by the soft chuckles of a man whose glowing eye can be seen peering through the surrounding dark air. Jace's inner thoughts flash as he recalls this character's voice. So then, you do remember me. A terrible feeling comes over Jace. A feeling of trust and betrayal at the same time, just like when he was a prisoner to Broski's mind. His thoughts speed through his head like a blur, and Jace is able to piece together what this unknown being was ordered and is able to piece together that this unknown being was ordered by Broski to destroy Jace if he was ever able to reclaim his body. This was Broski's failsafe plan against Jace from ever ruining his sinister plans. Only now can Jace see how devious Broski's plans are, as he knows that Broski is willing to die to complete his goals, to leave the world stuck under his reign even after he is long gone from this mortal coil. The mysterious figure starts to walk towards Jace in a staggering stiff fashion. This time, its laugh growing louder from the surrounding darkness that embraces both of them. Jace becomes enraged with self-hate and fear, and begins to rip the being apart limb from limb. With each hand of guts and bones being pulled out pulled out, the laughing increases until Jace stops. Now with nothing but the head covered by a menacing mask, Jace slowly removes it to find nothing but a small child's face staring back at him. A mirror image of when he was a boy, with his mouth stitched shut. Just his eyes were left with a sign of terrifying pain and endless fear, looking back at him. The sound of dismantled parts break Jace from his concentration, and he finds himself circled now by several more similar masked boys, walking slowly towards him, arms stretched out, reaching for him in the same manner as the first did, and the malicious laughing begins again. Maniacal laughing begins again. The fear of Broski takes a hold of him, and what sort of plans these children have in store for him. He crushes what is left of the torn apart former little boy with a stomp and erupts towards the outside of the airship. Jace can see the flying train off in the distance, and it continues to move farther away still. Stressing his eyes' abilities, he can see that BC and Sid have somehow safely gotten on board, and with a sigh of relief, Jace races around the surface of the airship, searching for the main cockpit so he can put the machine down. Proceeding down the side of the airship, Jace buries his hand into its metal shell to keep himself from falling off. In doing so, he arrives eye to eye with the helmsman of the airship, and sees it is nothing but another one of the masked beings who has a vest loaded with bombs strapped to its chest, and its hands literally fused to the steering column. Jace tears away the metal cage around the saddened child and tries to talk to it. "What do you think we should do about this?" he asks, while trying to figure out the best way to deactivate the bomb. Before the boy behind the mask is able to translate anything that is on his mind, the vest activates, and Jace lets out a similar deep sigh as before, grabbing the vest and throwing it and the poor soul out of the cockpit, along with the controls of the ship. As the soon-to-be deceased helmsman plummets from the airship, its mask falls off, showing tears streaming from the face at both the sight of the world without a barrier, and that its torment would soon be put to rest. Jace leaps with every bit of strength he has left from the airship, giving a proper salute to the falling beast of a boy. Landing with tremendous force on the side of the flying train, a giant explosion from the unmanned airship crashes into the ground, causing the train to do a full barrel roll before recovering its flight path. Jace regroups with the others inside one of the undamaged boxcars, and BC and Sid watch as the dust clouds from the now formed crater makes its way farther into the distance. "We should be arriving at Zen's place soon," states Jace as he takes a seat, his eyes already closed, and head and hands. Sid, still very badly injured, but having never been out of the city, finds himself eager to meet this wise man, the one who has been helping Jace into becoming the young man who he sees before him now. Can't wait to meet this Zen fella. BC reads the expression and body language rating off the two of the boys and sees that this is the first time either of them have been in such a drastic event. How are Sid's wounds doing? Jace asks, looking at BC for a response. BC doesn't answer, still staring in thought about everything that had just happened. So Jace opens his scarred eye to look for himself. With BC remaining silent, Jace remembers which eye he was using and immediately feels paranoid that Broski is making an attempted return. Opening his other eye quickly, he turns his attention fully to Sid. He seems to be holding on by a thread, but that knife in his chest isn't helping. Jace says in more of a doctored tone than anything else. Fuck you, Sid tries to say, but the pain from the knife stops him from carrying on. With Jace's strength and well-being nearly back to normal limits again, they can see the mountain growing closer with each passing second. As Sid coughs up a large amount of blood, the two of them help him out of the train. Waking Zen up, they find that he doesn't seem to be as ready as he did the first time Jace arrived with company. Jace, you're back so soon. Who did you bring up here this time? Zen asked sleepily, not noticing the floating train coil around his camp like a corkscrew before heading back to the rise. Floating train coiled around his camp like a corkscrew before heading back to the rise. As they show him their new companion, Zen can't help but think he is staring at a still warm corpse. Pulling the sharp object from Sid's chest, Zen takes hold of BC and Jace's hands and begins a healing spell, which is able to repair the knife wound at an incredible rate. He then searches his small wood-crafted shelter for 2 scrolls that held scripture of the undead and blood renewal spells from times before Broski destroyed the world. I must warn you, this is dark magic, and its final outcome could do you more harm than good, Zen announces to the two of them, who brace themselves as he begins to mutter what sounds like nonsense to the propped up body. Sid's body begins to shake wildly and blood begins to seep out of his nose and mouth in a vomiting upshot, which is followed by a shout of life that quiets the forest around them. With Sid now lying awake, breathing heavily, he forces up the leftover blood that had projected from his lips and nose. BC kneels down to support beside him, to see if he is already all right, and for a brief second Jace couldn't help but see a bit of himself in BC. Looking up, BC notices Jace's stare and completely feels the same way. She places her hand atop of Sid's scar, which was now healed and located a few inches from where his heart would be. Ha ha ha, Sid laughs, still taking full breaths, but trying to hold a cheery tone in his voice. Looks like we won, he goes on. This humor among the three of them forces them to burst into bursts of laughter. Jace brings his attention to Zen, who is as serious as can be, and realize why right away. Zen, being aware of Broski's intention to sniff out his location, feels that his home has now been compromised. How it could have slipped my mind to make the connection of how Broski would try to find me out, Zen says to himself nervously. Jace is hit with a massive amount of depression and anxiety for all the innocent people he has hurt and will hurt before this hellish war is over, and for how much longer it will have to continue. It's my fault that Broski's reach made it this way. Here, Zen. You were right, BC. We really should have stopped that creep boneyard. Jace confesses, knowing that it is too late now for words to fix. As the conversation continues, he notices from the corner of his eye that Sid is now fully active and energetic with a new found strength and is able to zip around with complete ease. Running up to Jace with absolute glee, thank you. I can't tell you how much it means to me. I thought I was a goner for sure, he tells him. I will do my best to stand strong beside you in your ongoing journey. Jace responds with thanks in return, but waves Sid to the old man who did the hard work. As Sid and Zen introduce each other, BC is petting Root, who is now resembled a shape of a large orange. She becomes worried for the lovable creature and calls the others over with her concern. Hey, Root is starting to look really strange, guys. At the moment, Root takes on its electrical form and rockets into the sky, and with a loud pop, and that sends sparks flying everywhere into the air. As the sky clears, Root had disappeared, or at least its mouse form has. Now, as a bird, Root swoops down from the sky and lands on the ground beside BC. Oh, she exclaims. Root pecks at a ant hill vigorously, the mound being torn asunder. What the hell is going on? BC asks Jace, who is just as puzzled as she is. It's getting bigger, Zen, who had retreated into the cabin, returns with a map focused on making plans for countering Broski's inevitable threat. We must stop him at all costs. As Jace takes charge. He tells Sid and BC, go and gather wood and some food from the surrounding forest area, but to look out for each other and of any suspicion. We're on it, bud, Sid shouts as he dashes straight into the woods, with Root perched on BC's shoulder, following closely behind. Zen and Jace start to brainstorm on their strategy to hide from their enemy. As the four of them work on their tasks, they all have their own thoughts and ideas about what the future will hold. For once, Jace feels like he's part of a family that wants him for who he is and not for anything else. Wondering if anyone else is thinking the same, he peers into the forest and notices BC, who is grinning from ear to ear while sharing her gatherings with Root. Sid, still just a teenager, is found flailing the firewood around like a sword before stacking it in his other arm. Jace. Hey, Jace. Zen's words finally reaching him. Stay focused. It's extremely important, you know. Jace smiles in agreement, but is pleased that they are all the same as him in some way. Looking into the night air and feeling as if they are together, not only in spirit but thoughts.